learning how to leverage, work with offshoring, becoming a student of it, educating myself, and realizing that most small to medium businesses, they think that outsourcing and offshoring is for, it's all call centers or it's just for the Fortune 500 businesses. That no, the muffler shop down the street can actually use, outsourcing and offshoring. It's just, the way that you go about doing it.
Welcome to LeaderPass Studios' executive series, Behind the Curtain of Leadership. I'm your host, Jamie Minton. This show is all about the leaders behind the companies, what makes them unique, and how they can impact you. Today, we meet Brad Stevens, the founder and CEO of Outsource Access, an offshore virtual services firm that has grown to over 500 employees in just 4 years. His company has won 8 global awards, including ranking in the top 7% of the Inc. 5000. But Brad's also a 10-year member of the Global Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, where he served as the U.S. East Regional Director, overseeing 22 chapters and 2,000 members. Outsource Access is known for providing tailored solutions that help businesses scale efficiently, but what truly sets Brad apart in my mind is his dedication to maintaining a strong company culture and giving back to the community. In this interview, Brad shares insights into his leadership philosophy, the unique services they offer, and what sets him apart in the competitive outsourcing landscape. So if you've ever thought about hiring a VA or need outsourcing solutions, you can learn more about Brad's work at outsourceaccess.com or connect with Brad on LinkedIn. Join us as we explore his strategies, learn about his approach to outsourcing, and see how he helps his clients succeed. So Brad, it's great to have you on the show here. And I want to get into all the business stuff and exciting things you have going on. But can we start by talking about where you're from, where you grew up, and about your family?
Well, I grew up not too far from here. Excited to be in your studios here in Atlanta. But first, thanks for having me on here. Excited to be a part of this series. It's an honor with all your background, all the people you've worked with. It's pretty humbling to be able to be in this seat. So yeah, I grew up actually in the Atlanta area, south of Atlanta. My whole family is from here. And so a little bit south of the airport. And got 2 younger sisters, one that lives down the street from me and one that's down in Savannah, another big growing city in our state of Georgia here. But I'm married with 2 youngins. My wife, we've been together. It was actually our 10-year anniversary back here this past March.
Congrats, nice.
She's from Michigan originally, and so it's nice to go there during the summers to reprieve from the Georgia heat, which we're about to take that trip. And our 2 little ones, Ella is 8. But heading to 3rd grade, and our youngest, Braden, is 4, and he'll be starting his pre-kindergarten year here coming up. So
nice.
As we all hear as parents, it disappears in a blink. So that's my wife and I's like BHAG. Our here audacious goal is that we can look back and say it didn't go in a blink because we tried to soak in all the moments that we can. So trying to do so.
That's awesome. I remember you talking about you and your wife's personalities, and you made a funny comment before we started about how you thought, well, we'll have kids that are maybe total opposites or not near the drivers, but as I understand it, they're both just as big a go-getters as you guys are.
It's my wife and I were both, the classic firstborn A-types. I got 2 younger sisters, and she's got a younger sister, and so we're both, high A's. And then we thought, we'd have some recessive gene kids, like that one kid that's like, would y'all all chill out? We don't have to execute all day. But unfortunately, both of them are, or fortunately, both of them are definitely strong leaders, as our teachers always say. They're going to be great leaders one day. But behavior chart says there's some challenges here and there. But
Yep.
Yeah, so they're awesome kids, but just fun, bold personalities, but a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I know you and I met originally. I was thinking back through the original date we met. I think it was right around 2018. It was a project that was doing with Phyllis Newhouse and Viola Davis, actress. Yep. And then that led to an event or 2 that we did we produced with John Maxwell, leadership author.
A unique experience.
And wasn't that was a blast to be around those kind of people. And I know you've been around people like that and this entrepreneur streak in you, so you fit right in with that crew. And so it was fun having you and on stage and speaking, which was just dynamite. And that was really near the beginning of you launching your business. But before we get into the business side of things, every entrepreneur has some kind of a lemonade stand story.
Right.
Do you have something like that, or what got you kind of that bug going in your life?
Yeah, it's kind of a fun one, and yeah, thanks for sharing. That was an amazing experience, and to be able to speak on a stage that John Maxwell had just been on was like one of the most unique opportunities in my life, and get a chance to meet him. So thanks again for that opportunity. Yeah, my lemonade stand story, and yeah, most crazy entrepreneurs got something. They're hawking candy to friends or what have you. But for me, anybody remembers? I was born in 1979, and so when I was second, third grade, micro machines, these little tiny cars was all the rage. And there was a guy I know, he always did the commercials, and he spoke really, really fast. But I loved micro machines. Like it was my fun toy that I asked for birthdays and Christmas and so forth. And yeah, in third grade, third, fourth grade, my dad would always drive me to school. And so my dad, was an entrepreneur as well, and, growing a business. And so we had about a 20, 30 minute ride to school in the morning. And I remember always asking, and I can still smell the blue leather of that Lincoln Continental car. Like I can see it like yesterday. Um, but he would, drive to school and just ask questions about, the business, and we would chat, and I would just, hear things and learn things. And so I decided one day from those chats, I was going to start my own little enterprise in third, fourth grade, and decided to rent those micro machines. So all birthdays and Christmases, I would ask for them. And so I think I ended up getting, I don't know, 400 or 500 of them. And I went to a little, Christian school. And so the ironic part as well is my parents enjoyed drinking Crown Royal, not in volumes, but enjoyed Crown Royal, and so they came in those little purple bags. So that's why I decided to store all my micro machines in. So
Oh, really?
I go into my little Christian school, third, fourth grade, and I'd have like 400 or 500 of my
You
micro
fit right
machines
in. I'm sure you fit.
my Crown Royal
Yeah,
bags.
yeah.
But I remember I had a young woman named Winter Hawkins was my VP of sales, and I still have the little like folder my mom shared with me. I made a credit card for us, a little paper credit card. I had a company newsletter on a typewriter. I still have the actual original one that says 1989 on the top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first foray into decided I was going to do a toy rental business, and it was for a penny a night, and I had a frequent shopper card.
And you'd rent them to kids, or you'd rent
Yeah,
them
rent them to all my classmates. And then, with micro machines, you could also buy like the little gas station or the little like mall that went, and I think I was charged like a nickel of those, per night. But yeah, no, it was all from those conversations I had, with my dad and learning
That's
about
cool.
it, and
Very cool.
part of how they did frequent shopper cards and so forth. And so yeah, that was my first journey, and got shut down ultimately by my teacher, as most young kids do. It was too much of a commotion and, distraction in the classroom.
Yeah.
But I ended up starting a tutoring company as well in high school. And
Okay.
so that was my next enterprise. As I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better job than the typical high school summer kid. So I went to all the middle school counselors in the middle schools in my city there, and I said, hey, do you have any kids that are struggling, either trying to get through math, or some that want to skip a level of math? And I went to all the teachers and got all their workbooks and worksheets and said, I can make copies of all these. And so the middle school counselors were basically my lead source. They would send me these kids
That's funny.
that had challenges.
That's awesome.
And so yeah, $20 an hour back in what, 1990, I don't know, 7, 6 was not too bad.
Big time for
So,
high school. Are you kidding? That's
yeah.
great. That is great. Now, speaking of school, talk about where your schooling was, because I know that was a priority for you as an entrepreneur, and then where that led you when it came to college. What was your journey there?
Yeah, education wise, trying to figure out what that next step was going to be, and in a big launching for me in the entrepreneurial side as well. Actually, along with that tutoring business, and in my senior year of high school, we got a chance to actually run an international trading business as part of one of my classes.
Oh, wow.
So we actually issued stock to our parents. We had to raise money. We had to do a big golf tournament to raise initial cash. And then we had a trading partner of some fellow students in Scotland, and we would ship products back and forth. And so we would ship them Beanie Babies, which were the big rage,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So those went for a premium over in Scotland, and they sent us jewelry and these like pet rocks, like we're making kind of a resurgence. And so I got a chance to have a taste at a deeper level, more formal level of entrepreneurship, and so I knew I wanted to go down that, down that path. And so, but yeah, education wise, so I ended up started at Harvard University. Got a chance to go there. I threw out applications everywhere. I didn't know where I was going to kind of get in, and got lucky, got that opportunity. They didn't have business undergrad education. All they had was economics, which is the closest thing to it.
Okay.
And I got into Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania, and just choosing Harvard to kind of start. And started, I mean, I had a great time, met a bunch of amazing people. I love the liberal arts side of education. I love the writing side. I loved language. I mean, romance languages was going to be kind of a minor of mine. But economics and just trying to get that business foundation, knowing I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I just wasn't fully connecting the dots on it. And so I remember I was cleaning out my closet in the spring of that year and found the transfer paperwork for Wharton at UPenn. I was like, you know what? I think that's going to be the better fit for me. So I ended up filling out the transfer paperwork and transferred down and finished the back half of college down at Wharton at UPenn, and had an amazing experience. I had 2 concentrations in finance and marketing, 2 different sides of the brain, and met a bunch of amazing people, got some great internship opportunities. And so that was kind of where I closed out. So it laid a good foundation. But as any entrepreneur knows, um, the classroom is only going to get you so far relative to what you're going to learn in the entrepreneurial world. So
Yep.
a lot of the fundamentals, particularly accounting and bookkeeping, like that's probably one of the most fundamental things, knowing the numbers from the beginning, because most entrepreneurs get glazed over when you talk about spreadsheets and forecasting and financials. But getting a good grounding in numbers and financials at Wharton was probably one of the most powerful things, because I don't do anything before I do a financial model and understand the economic
Mm.
viability.
Mm.
But it was a great foundation.
That's fantastic. And that took you, were you, because of the entrepreneur side of who you are, your DNA, did you jump straight into your own business? Did you jump into a partnership? Take me through when you left, when you were done with school, what did you do from there?
Sure, it was a story of many tragedies that end up happening in an entrepreneur's life that end up being, silver linings along those
Sure.
tragedies. So I graduated in 2002, right, which we were having a bunch of crazy things happen economically at that point. And I always wanted to go down the entrepreneurial path, but I ended up taking a job so I could pay off some school debt and so forth, and in the investment banking space. So, Wharton and UPenn's big on finance, and I got a chance to get a job with an investment banking firm that actually was based in Atlanta.
Okay.
So here I was, 22 years old, going to make investment banking money, but cost of living of Atlanta, got an apartment with another, a single guy, and we were going to have an amazing time in Buckhead and enjoy that whole scene and do that for a couple years. And about 3 weeks before I was supposed to start, I got notice that they went under and we're out of business.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
about to go to training in San Francisco. This investment bank was really big in the technology space. And so kind of ripped the rug out from underneath me. I had some other offers with some other opportunities, but I was super excited, already paid for a lease and rent on the apartment. And so I kind of had a decision point, and I, on one side, it was like, I never worked a day for this company, and I got to keep my signing bonus, and I got 3 months severance pay, and I never worked a day for the company.
Wow, really? Wow. Okay. So that is a silver lining at that
Yeah.
time in life.
So I was like, let me just go find the next failing company and go try there, and I can just like Ponzi this whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments. And so an uncle of mine had sent me a business model concept about helping low-income people with patient assistance programs with medications. He was a doctor. And so I could have taken some other offers I had with some other companies. I had an offer with Goldman, had an offer with a big marketing firm up in New York, some others in Atlanta. And I decided to go down that second fork. So I took that severance pay and signing bonus, I don't know, around $19,000-$20,000. Back in that day was,
It's a lot.
decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And I tucked my tail, moved back in with my parents down in Peachtree City, Georgia, and I decided to go down the entrepreneurial path and start this business with my uncle. And so
Very cool.
it's basically we would help low-income seniors qualify for patient assistance programs to be able to get free medication from the drug companies. And if they didn't qualify, their income wasn't low enough, we had mail order pharmacy relationships that we could help them with medications. And so I was
Nice.
traveling back and forth between Peachtree City, and then he was down in Alabama. So I was traveling back and forth, and we launched walk-in locations, and trying to get that business underway. And we didn't have a lot of money, and so I kept trying to get free PR. This is one of the biggest values I saw, free PR. So I was writing to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the biggest publication, saying, hey, we're helping all these people. Here's their stories. Could someone write a story about this to get us some free PR and publicity? And I remember coming back from a Georgia Auburn game with a buddy of mine. His mom came out as I dropped him off in the driveway and said, you're on the cover of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
No way.
With
Really?
zillions and zillions of circulation.
Incredible.
And our phone rang off the hook. So I remember in a room, fraction of this size, I called my grandmother, I called my aunt, and said, hey, I need you guys all come here, answer phones. And I jammed them all into a little
Did
tiny
you really?
room.
Yeah.
Because we were getting 300 calls a day for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So it was huge, and really able to have a huge impact and help a lot of people, in their journey.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that was my first entrepreneurial journey right out of college, and I've had a lot of sequence, since then.
I want to talk about what you do now, because I think it's amazing. And like everybody, I could see this applying to almost every business or every person we know. But right before you started Outsource Access, what's the memory that comes to mind? What's the business? Was a success or failure? What led you to the idea of the entire outsourcing offshore virtual assistant model that you have now?
Sure. Yeah, it was unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, like your entrepreneurial experiences in businesses end up daisy chaining for whatever reason. So that first company I had in the medical pharmaceutical space, I had a business partner, and things didn't end up working out long term, and we parted ways. And then I got into another business in nutritional products, and then the next business after that, we launched a business around teeth whitening. So we actually helped manufacture and distribute teeth whitening products for the dental industry and the beauty industry. And that scaled pretty well. We were servicing about, I don't know, 17, 18 different countries internationally, and we sold a variety of products, professional teeth whitening systems for the dental industry and also for the beauty industry, spa salons, tanning salons. And in growing that business, we had this one product called our Chick Flick pen. It was a double-sided teeth whitening and lip gloss, and ended up having a failure point with one of the products. Long story around it, but at the end of the day, when the manufacturers changed a component, it caused these whitening pens to basically blow up.
Oh no.
And so our next batch of 10,000 we sent out, and that was the batch that we sent to all the major editors of all the beauty magazines and everything, because we were getting great success with this. I had little mini LED lights. It was lip gloss, teeth whitener, all in one. But cash got super tight, and that's where I've been hearing about the whole offshoring, outsourcing world. And I'd read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, which a lot of people have heard of, and I just said, I got to become a student of this and implement it tomorrow, because we got to make cash stretch, because we're having this disaster product situation. And so just became a student of it and started working with different offshore resources in different countries, understanding what they were capable of, which countries were better for certain things, how to communicate with them, and building a foundation knowledge. And it kind of helped us, it's kind of saved that business at the time. And so when I parted from that business, I had this knowledge set around it.
Yeah.
And I knew how to do outsourcing. I knew how to find these people. It's kind of like how ChatGPT is today. It's like, I know this amazing thing exists, but what do I do with it? And that's where a lot of people are with outsourcing. It's, I understand it exists, but how does it work? So I would go speak to tons of organizations and share, hey, here's case studies. Here's how you find these people. Here's what they do. Here's how you integrate them with your existing employees, how you communicate. And did a lot of speaking, consulting. And I'm in a mastermind business group called Entrepreneurs Organization. And we meet with fellow business owners once a month to kind of guide each other. And they're like, Brad, you talk about this and consult on it all over the place. Why don't you just launch your own outsourcing, business?
So they encouraged you. They were like saying, man, go do it yourself, kind of.
Yeah.
Because you
it's like, why don't you go ahead and launch your own operation? Because I was referring people to others. And so, so that was 2019. He said, you know what? So I started working with a lot of people in the Philippines. I can share more about why that's the country of choice. But I started working with a young woman, and then I named Jaysel, and then added a second and a third who were helping me with my speaking and consulting business. So I was seeing their capabilities and was just blown away by the competency, the English proficiency, how quickly they learned and absorbed things. And so that's where I decided to launch our operations, was the Philippines. So I flew over there, incorporated, and fast forward, and we've gotten to 500 employees in 4.5 years, 75 different industries. And so lots of steps in between, and all that happened during COVID, launched in 2019, right before COVID hit. So a lot of journeys in that, but yeah, that was the impetus. Is in my prior business was learning how to leverage, work with offshoring, becoming a student of it, educating myself, and realizing that most small to medium businesses, they think that outsourcing and offshoring is for, it's all call centers, or it's just for the Fortune 500 businesses. That no, the muffler shop down the street can actually use, outsourcing and offshoring. It's just, the way that you go about doing it.
You wrote an article. You just reminded me when you said that, and I don't know if it had to do with if I could outsource. What was it called? It was called "If I Could Outsource
Brushing My Teeth."
Yes, yeah,
That's right.
Wasn't that the article name? It was "If I Could Outsource Brushing My Teeth." I would.
Article.
And that to me, whenever I read that, and then you and I talked about it, it's because you can literally, whatever you can think of that is a process or that you're doing regularly, you can implement what you do. I mean, you can implement the offshoring idea or outsourcing idea. But I remember that article specifically because you were doing, and there was something that happened in your basement that you were, I've got people looking up contractors.
You all my articles.
I did.
Reads my articles.
Yeah. And so you had it in a way. You were saying all these details that take me out of my business or out of my game, I can find someone who can do just as good, if not better, job. And you're right. That's what I pictured day one when we talked about this, because I was like, is this a third world country? What am I dealing with? Is it going to be like the frustrations I've had, like calling up a carrier and having to talk to somebody that was difficult and was reading the script? You really changed that paradigm in my mind. And so when you think about the Philippines, let's talk about that. You mentioned the Philippines, and you showed me some video and you said, man, you don't understand. These people are educated. In fact, part of your program is sending people to increase their education there and get certain degrees and certain expertise, which is just amazing. But they're sitting at coffee shops with Mac computers, and I'm thinking, this is not what I pictured.
Yeah. It's a whole education, right? And understanding what this world is. I mean, I initially had to do it out of necessity, as I was sharing, but the more I became a student of it and understanding, because most people and myself, I feel myself as a pretty well-educated individual, but still, if you haven't been to some of these countries and understand, there's certain perceptions that most people have, when they think of And a lot of people just kind of group all of Southeast Asia together. They just think they associate kind of accent and like bad customer service when they call the cable company,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, when I went in this world and understood it, the Philippines relative to the rest of Southeast Asia is a bit. I mean, the United States controlled it up until 1947, right? So it's completely Americanized culture. English is their second language. They're graduating, I think, 900,000 4-year college degree individuals every single year.
Wow.
So they get, because it's an Americanized culture, and they have the American education system there as well as the same way the U.S. does, primary and middle and high school. It's not the culture gap, right? You don't deal with the culture gap. So when you're working with someone and bringing them into your life and into your business in the U.S., it's not, English is not an issue, right? They have great, great English. Some have a slight accent. Some of them you would never know they're from the Philippines. And one of our clients is a wealth management firm up in New York that has high-end clients calling them. It's our staff from the Philippines that's answering the calls, and you would never know that Jane is from the Philippines. Perfect, perfect English. But you don't have the culture gap when you're working with people, so they understand, and they're just an amazing service-minded, culture and group of individuals. They want to integrate and become a part of your life and your business and understand your mission, your core values. So for all those parameters, makes the Philippines a bit different. And what I was drawn to it when I started first working with JCell, and then other staff along the way, and JCell. My very first VA, who had never been a VA before, had a couple of prior jobs working with some other companies, at 23, 24 years old, was able to grow and scale her ability to become, our COO of her, 400 or 500 people in
Wow.
just 4 or 5 years. So
Yeah.
she alone is a testament of their ability to learn. And there's just a voraciousness to learn and to understand things and kind of embrace new processes and don't have the pushback on things. So that's what kind of drew me to the Philippines as a country. And I was like, did I get JCell? Is she like a unicorn here? Like, and then I hired a second, who was her boyfriend at the time. His name's Third, and then he ended up, now her husband, and then a fourth and a fifth. And so I had this team, and it was just, I kept seeing the same type of incredible work,
Hmm.
competency, great communication. I mean, yeah, there are 12 hours, difference on the other side of the world, but it was the same level I was getting, even from some local, staff I work with.
And you've built that, you're leading that team. If somebody asks you where are your headquarters, do you say the US with Philippines, or do you say the Philippines? I mean, how do you answer that question? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally the only person in the United States. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia here, and my whole, that was part of my journey. There's a lot of outsourcing companies that some of them have some of their leadership teams in the U.S. or Australia, and then in more of their operation side in the Philippines. But I was committed to, like, I want to create the entire C-suite, and senior management team, in the Philippines. And,
Hmm.
and could I find that level of talent? I mean, I know I was dealing with it as far as initial layer of managers
Sure.
and frontline VAs and so forth. But as we kind of climbed and grew, and yeah, so my entire C-suite, and in fact, we just hired a whole new layer of senior executives to help take us to the next level. We're trying to go to several thousand employees in the next several years, from 500 to where we are. And I mean, my chief marketing officer, our chief talent officer, our HR director, I mean, are just phenomenal high level executives, just like you would have here, in the U.S. that help, run the operation.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And you are a big believer in culture, in the Peter Drucker quote, culture eats, okay, what is it?
Culture strategy
Okay,
for
I'll
lunch.
say it again. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. And you are big time into culture. So adding value beyond just here's a job to these people matters to you. And you've shown me footage of celebrations you do and team events and opportunities where you go over there and celebrate those and have big what would look like a really cool, fun environment to be a part of. So talk
Yeah.
about why, because that's a deliberate choice compared to I'm just going to employ you because we can pay you more than you would normally make in the Philippines. So how have you approached that?
Yeah, it's been and I love that quote because I think it's thrown away around a bit, and I love that quote because I think it's one of those that's kind of thrown around a bit, but it is so wildly important. And as I've grown as an entrepreneur and being a part of a VO Entrepreneurs Organization for 11 years, and I'm a part of YPO as well, and so I have a meet with a group of business owners, over the last decade, and I calculated 700 hours of forum meetings I've had with EO, and it becomes clearer more than ever that culture is a driving force. Everything else kind of falls, in line if that's dialed in. And so from day one, when JCell and I started working together, I mean, I've always had a major give back component. I mean, I started, with a buddy of mine, a breast cancer charity, initiative that we've done for a number of years. And all my business have had some kind of nature of that. And when we started Outsource Access, a couple of months after JCell and I started working together, she sent me a picture and said, "Hey, And it was a picture of these, young Filipino, children in a village with, these shoes in a circle. And she said, Brad, because of the money I'm making with you that I wouldn't be able to make otherwise, and the flexibility, I was actually able to go buy these shoes for these children, local village in my community, and give back. Right. And so it's like this amazing light bulb moment of it. Like, this is such a win-win-win. Here I am, business owner, being able to get access to talent that I can afford at the stage in my business. And then she's making an income she wouldn't be able to make otherwise, and getting access to opportunity and growing her skills so much so that she's able to pay it forward in her local community
That's cool.
and give back. And so I told JCL, I said, I don't know where we're going to take this business. I said, but I want to have, virtual assistants give back. And we kind of called it that day, as a part of what we do. So we're going to intentionally give back in the community and make culture a big part of what, giving back and being committed to something bigger than ourselves and our company from day one. And actually, in parallel to that, I had just gotten an opportunity because of EO to go speak at the United Nations headquarters in New York. I actually got on the floor of the United Nations with 200 entrepreneurs that travel from all over the world, of how can we help embrace and advance the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which, if anybody hasn't heard, encourage you Google UN SDGs. It's basically 17 frameworks that support everything related to humanity and the environment. And so I got excited about how could we implement the Sustainable Development Goals at Outsource Access as part of our culture. And so, with that first experience with JCell, so my very first trip to the Philippines, I'm like, let's do this at scale. And so we actually had a bunch of children. The way we could get their shoe sizes was they, a piece of paper, they drew an outline of their foot and sent it into to our team so we could buy the right shoe sizes.
Yeah.
And so on one of my first trips over there, we went and visited a village and provided 100 pairs of shoes, really nice shoes for a bunch of kids, and
Amazing.
journals and a bunch of educational support materials as well. And fast forward, it's just been a part. So every single quarter, we survey our employees and we ask, what do you care most about? And so one quarter, it's life on land, which is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. So we've planted, I think, over 300 trees now to offset carbon emissions in the Philippines.
Wow.
Another quarter, it's offsetting hunger. And so we actually bought tons and tons of rice and bags of rice for the trike drivers over there to offset hunger, especially during COVID. There was an earthquake. We had team members that traveled 8 hours with over 1,000, sanitation kits that we took to them. So it's been a huge part in our community, and our employees see that, we're doing something bigger here than just growing Outsource Access and creating opportunities for employment. We want to have a ripple effect and impact in the organization.
That's incredible. Well, I can see how you get from 500 to 2,000, providing a place like that, and opportunity, and the emotional and reward of being able to give and serve others like that is amazing. How would you, so if you were going to define Outsource Access where it is today, how do you define it?
I define it, it's interesting. On the surface, people look and say, oh, you're an outsourcing company. It's low cost labor in another country, right? At the very surface level, when people hear outsourcing, there's all these negative connotations. And, I would, and I will say, as a sidebar, interestingly enough, I would say 95% plus of what we do in our clients in 75 different industries and all the staff that we provide aren't replacing people in the United States or the United Kingdom or Canada or Australia or New Zealand, which are the countries we all operate in. The vast majority, it's about augmenting and augmenting people's existing employees, right? You got a high performing employee in your business. You just want them to be able to maximize their capabilities. So
Sure.
you pair them with one of our staff, and we integrate side by side with them and integrate into their business. And so you can take that employee plus our staff, at a fraction of the cost, but not a compromise in competency. And, it's like 1 + 1 equals 5. So where I'd say where we are now is that Outsource Access, our tagline is redefining how you scale. And I was working with a consultant the other day, and he goes, Brad, and you guys, yeah, you're outsourcing, providing business process outsourcing and virtual assistants and, all these different industries. I mean, we're very custom and bespoke with every client. I mean, and we're supporting customer service and operations and marketing and sales and everything from, private label shoe manufacturers to concrete manufacturers in Nebraska to financial services businesses in California, across all dimensions in the business. And so really, we're there to help drive growth and profitability for our clients. And we're really a process improvement organization. So instead of like, hey, here's your low cost, labor resource that's going to plug into your business, we provide comprehensive support and infrastructure I mean, when people look at our presentation and they see the 15 tests that we put our staff through before they can be hired and work for Outsource Access, because we're fully incorporated there. So we hire everybody as full-time employees. We pay their
Okay.
health insurance,
Mm.
we pay their benefits. That helps us attract people that are wanting to pursue this as a full-time opportunity. Because a lot of the concerns people have is high turnover, and I started working with someone and they disappeared. Well, with us hiring them as full-time employees, we know we're attracting people that are right talent. We do IQ testing, emotional intelligence testing, whole this battery of assessments to make sure that we're getting people that are going to be a right fit, for us and for our clients. And so there's all that pre-work that's done. And then we do this super deep discovery with clients. We unpack all their constraint points that they're navigating, things that they're doing that aren't the best use of time, things that they're not getting to due to time, money, and knowledge constraints, those two questions, to really get a comprehensive understanding of where their growth challenges are. So to get to your questions, where does Outsource Access, how do we define ourselves? That process is about getting the right people. And honestly, the filtering we do for staff in the Philippines, a lot of our clients will see our presentation deck and like, we don't even do that for our employees in the US.
Right.
You guys do a
Right.
whole nother layer of stuff. And then the whole discovery process we do to figure out where their constraints are and figure out what kind of people we need to plug into their organization. And then we have a super granular process for onboarding, and they get a dedicated strategist from our team in the Philippines. So who's dedicated and knows their industry. And we're there not just to provide a VA or an offshore resource, but to know your business at a deep level, understand the industry, the strategy, so that we can plug someone in and provide a strategy person that's your advocate along with your VA to really drive and scale. And that's how we've had clients, have as many as 80 or 90 staff with us. And we have a lot of staff that have one or two with us, small to medium businesses, but some that kind of go north of it because we're there to help understand their growth path and be a growth partner,
Not just
them,
a task.
not just an outsourcing company.
Yeah. And so on that note, what size company do you feel like is really positioned for needing you? Is it the larger ones? Is it mid-size, or what would be a profile?
Yeah, and the range of SMB, small to medium business, kind of how it gets defined, people define it a little bit differently. What we are not is, going after the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, large call center type operations and
That's
so
not your-
forth isn't,
Yeah.
as of today, isn't really kind of been our path. My passion and being an entrepreneur and growing up in an entrepreneurial environment my entire life and just seeing the impact it had and what's sparked me to launch this business to begin with was the passion for the small to medium business market. The 30 million plus businesses in the US and in other countries we work with. It's the heartbeat of the economy. And if you can help small to medium businesses be successful. So I would say that's our main target. And, I'd say right now the current range is we got clients that are doing $500,000 or $600,000 a year that maybe have one person with us up to, $100 million, plus in every different industry, imaginable. And doing everything from, we just had a case study. I'm doing a big webinar about just what we're doing in accounting and bookkeeping, which is a whole big section of what we do. And so we're doing deep dive accounting and bookkeeping and supply chain management for a barbecue restaurant chain throughout Alabama and Georgia, all the way to we've got a client who's a carpet manufacturer that manufactures in India and they ship to the US and they sell primarily through interior designers in the United States.
Okay.
And they were struggling because their sales reps, they had all these dormant leads in their CRM system, all these designers, interior designers who hadn't sent them any business lately to buy carpets and rugs. So they hired some VAs with us. We created a protocol during that discovery process. We dug in, we created a game plan, how we could dive into all their dormant leads. They took some of our staff, dove into all their dormant leads of designers, reaching out to them, connecting with them via email, via LinkedIn outreach. And we just got a report. We helped them generate over $1 million additional incremental dollars in revenue just from our VAs diving into their dormant accounts.
That is crazy. That's
right?
awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
It's crazy spectrum.
But a big
between all
variety,
these
yeah.
industries that we're in.
You said how many? 75 or 80?
Yeah, we're on 75 different industries that we're in currently. And to be honest, Jamie, launching right before COVID, like, hey, aren't you supposed to niche down and just focus in one area? That's, and that's always on my shoulder as far as, and I look at our growth going ahead, we're kind of niching down some. But I tell you, when you launch right before COVID in 2019 and you saw COVID wipe out certain industries, and one of those niches I was going to go down was commercial real estate, because I'd just spoken at a global conference in Washington, D.C. And I was like,
Pre-COVID,
commercial
like
real estate's a great fit. Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Well, if I'd gone down commercial real estate, where would my business be today? So, fortunately, the nature of what we're doing, even though we're in 75 different industries, every business, a lot of the fundamentals, whether you're doing operations or bookkeeping or marketing or sales, yes, there's nuances to know about that industry. But the beauty about our Filipino staff is they're fast learners, they're good communicators, they can take feedback, so they can get up to speed and engaged and supporting in a rapid kind of way, regardless of industry. And it keeps us diversified. So I can go to bed at night knowing I'm not going to wake up and something hits XYZ industry, and we're wiped out. I mean, look what AI is doing to the call center industry.
Sure.
If
Oh,
I had gone
gosh,
down the
yeah.
call center path, I mean, AI, I mean, it's starting to basically replace those functions.
Yeah.
But it's getting people that can learn quickly. We've been able to go in multiple different industries. I mean, I was actually with a client because I don't talk to directly. I don't get a chance to talk directly to a lot of our clients as our growth has continued. But one of ours is a personal injury law firm that one of our staff he brought in to help process all of their leads, do caseload management for their personal injury law work. The software they use called LeaderPass. She learned it so well and so quickly that our staff in the Philippines working for him is actually doing training all his US employees on how to use their software. So when he hires a brand new employee locally to come into their business, because they need to
Yeah.
have some local talent plus what we do, in our staff, she's making great money, doing very well, but she's costing probably a third of his local W-2 staff in the US, and she's training them on how to
Because
use
she's
the
that good.
software,
I love
right?
it. I love it.
Um,
That's incredible. That
so
is
it's been kind
incredible.
of cool, it's being that many industries and the type of work, and we document everybody's processes. So from day one, we document everything that we do, which our clients love because most of them have never documented their processes.
Yeah.
So it's just table stakes for us. If we're going to come in and support you with a VA, we're going to document from day one, and so they're able to kind of get all their processes documented throughout the entire journey. And that's part of what happened with that personal injury law firm is we documented processes never been done before that we could help train their other
Incredible.
staff.
Huge value. What would be, so I mean, you've named several things that I think are differentiators, but what would you say the biggest differentiator is from Outsource Access compared to other things we see that's constantly being pitched out there when it comes to outsourcing or hiring a freelancer or however you
Yeah.
define that?
Well, the niche that we're serving, right, and primarily all we do is full-time staff that are integrating into our clients' businesses, right? A full-time equivalent type of resource. Even though we're a service provider, we're a W-9 service provider, just like someone has a marketing agent and so forth. But you're getting a dedicated kind of person supporting, into your business. So a couple of key things is we're fully incorporated in the Philippines, right? So we hire everybody
Heard
as
you say that.
full-time
Yeah.
staff. We provide their benefits. So we're attracting talent that want to pursue this as a career path and be a sustainable, reliable resource. So I would say number one is that we can provide sustainability because of who we're hiring. And our staff have an employment agreement and contract with us, right? And if they ever want to part ways for whatever reason down the road, they have to give a 30-day notice, and we have full redundancy in place as well. So sustainability and reliability because we're incorporating how we're structured. Another huge element is the account management and strategic advising component of it, right? So we're not just an outsourcing VA company. Like I said, we are a growth partner. So, you get somebody who's got the right mindset, sustainable, reliable resource you can rely on, but then you get a dedicated account manager who's a strategic advisor to work side by side with you, have monthly calls. I mean, one of our, we've them broken up by industry. And so one of our account managers is an absolute expert in Shopify for the Philippines. I mean, she's brilliant in it, knows it really well. And so we had a client in the e-commerce space, and she was understanding their business, diving in, and realized that they had a lot of things very inefficient on how they had built out their entire Shopify sales strategy. So she mapped a whole strategy for them, had nothing to do with hiring another VA from us. It was just helping them reshape their strategy on how to grow and build their Shopify presence, right? So having that strategic advisory resource that's there, not just, hey, here's your low-cost resource, good luck, but hey, we're going to give you a whole team to kind of
Which is
support.
accountability too. I mean, that gives that, and that honestly,
Right.
from my end, that's peace of mind. Knowing that if, in general, if somebody flakes out or if somebody's not doing their job, you've got the management, the account manager in that case, overseeing the process, which is
Yeah.
huge. That's huge.
And it's two. So we've got the VA or the outsource staff that's working for the client. They have a team leader that's managing them. And then we have an account manager as well,
Okay.
which no other companies I've seen have that. So if you're a client of ours, you get a dedicated account manager who's working with you as a client from a strategy standpoint. And then you got the team leader managing the VA, and the VA is working direct. So it's a whole team that's there to support and drive your success. So I think that's the second one. The third one is this whole idea of, like I shared earlier, about us documenting processes. I don't know any other companies. I mean, a lot of our clients have said, man, we love our staff from Outsource Access. But a huge benefit you guys do is, I mean, I have a 120-page process documentation tool, all our processes documented. Like there was a company who wanted to charge me 20 grand just to do that. And you just do it as a part of your service and providing, VAs. So we do that for two reasons. One is it's just a good practice and the client owns that from day one. If we ever part ways, that's theirs. But for us from a redundancy, so if a VA, things do change, they have a life event that happens and we need to transition, get them a new one, we have everything documented so we can plug, another person in and support them by having all those processes, documented. Um, so I'd say that's another key element. And then we just make a lot of people struggle with just the hiring process, the training process. So we have a very structured process to make the hiring. We do full profiles of individuals. We send over to you. You get to see a video how them that they've shot of themselves and who they are and their background. We do all those IQ and assessments and so forth. So we're making the hiring process easy, and then we train them. That's the other big question we get is like, okay, you give me a great person, it's very cost effective. Now, what about training them, right? So we have a whole dedicated training team that creates an entire custom curriculum that trains that individual on, working with you because we got to unpack from clients. So a lot of times we're absorbing their processes, so we've got to learn them. So we got to create a curriculum of how we're going to get trained on your content. But then we train our staff if a client wants them to do LinkedIn or Canva or a CRM work in HubSpot or Salesforce. We have full comprehensive training, so we're training them kind of ahead of time. And the last thing I'll share, Jamie, is in addition to that VA that's working, we have over 200 specialized skills supporting them. So if you ever need something that's outside of that staff skill set, so for example, someone hires a VA with us and they didn't need video editing done, but 3 months down the road, like, hey, I got some raw footage of some customers. Can you turn it into like a little video for me? We have a video editor on staff that we can kind of pull in to help, make that video for them. So those are some key elements that it's all flanked by the culture, which you and I talked about before. And I would say hands down, you go to our website, outsourceaccess.com, you look at our videos, you go behind the scenes, you see our Christmas, parties, you see our events, the interviews I do with our VAs. And we actually publish our own magazine. We're the only company I know of in the Philippines. We have Virtual Success Magazine, 50-page magazine, where we showcase all of our employees. We do a whole photo shoot with them, show their journey, their story. And it's about celebrating them, as well.
That's fantastic. I think there's a lot of most American companies don't have what you just created in that culture and for those people. So I think you rattled off so many differentiators that if most people just applied that to their American-based business, it would radically change. So congratulations on that for sure.
I appreciate it. It's about people development. We're in the people business more than ever. And I mean, I think we rebranded HR. We don't call it HR. We call it people and culture as that department in our business. And I think we have 8 internal branded programs. SOAR is our leadership development program. ISOF is our In Search Of program. Total Rewards is our other development program. We have 8 internal branded programs to continue to develop our people down whatever path to help them be successful. And that translates into success for our clients. So I appreciate it. It's definitely a team effort. I mean, I've got a phenomenal team and they know that that's part of our mission. And so they're constantly creating great concepts and things to help drive our culture. And, Father's Day was just, a couple days ago. And our team actually did a whole deep dive personal showcase of 2 of our employees called The Tale of Two Fathers, and kind of went behind the scenes of 2 of our amazing Outsource Access employees who are fathers and their kids, and did a whole video expose of their story and their journey. You just don't see that with a lot of other companies. So
amazing.
It's cool to see.
So Brad, I know most successful entrepreneurs, business owners, C-suite execs have mentors and influencers in their life. So can you talk about maybe a couple of yours that come to mind?
Yeah, I've been very, very appreciative of just tons of mentors and relationships that have come into my life, either direct or kind of indirect. And, there's a number, tons of books and things that I've read over the years, but I'll have to say one particular that's had a big influence. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet directly and hope to, one day, is Jim Collins. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs have heard of him, and people have heard, Good to Great and some of his books. And I myself read it in my 20s, and I didn't quite connect with as much because my business wasn't the same size and, didn't connect. But we use a system called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, in our business. And the woman that helped us implement it, and we use a blend of things. We use some blends of that and Scaling Up, which is another platform, and some others. But she made us read Good to Great again as a team. She goes, I need all of you to read this together. I'm like, all right, the Jim Collins thing. Doesn't he talk about Circuit City? Didn't they go out of business? But I tell you, and I remember it was during COVID, and I was driving my wife in Michigan, so we were having to drive, couldn't do planes up to Michigan, so I was listening on Audible, and I'm just like, there's sometimes, you listen to certain content through a whole new lens of where you are in life. And I was like, these are the most timeless principles. And so I just became voracious about it. And so dug in, read his other books and re-engaged. I'm just like, and the thing I love about his stuff is it's not just short-term opinion. Like, he puts a decade of research, highly empirical data into the patterns and trends that, that he sees. And I stumbled across, as part of that, a lot of people don't realize. And again, if you take nothing else away from this, if you go to jimcollins.com and click on, it says concepts, he has this thing he created called the map. And the map, a number of years ago, people said, Jim, you got all these great books, but could you tighten it all up into a bow and kind of bring it all together? So he had created this thing called the map that ties all his concepts from good to great, built to
Oh,
last,
really?
great by choice. And a lot
Okay.
of people don't know exist. And I stumbled across this thing and on his website, and he breaks it into these silos: disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action, built to last. And he takes those buckets and then he applies the concepts from his books, right? And the first thing is first who, then what, right? Getting right people on the bus, and level 5 leadership. And I just connected, the difference, he talked about in all his studies of studying, good to great, studied 1,400 companies. And there was only 11 out of the 1,400 that met the criteria to be good to great. And the common path was, level 5 leadership. Level 4 leaders are phenomenal leaders, in a lot of ways, but the difference in level 5 is they're doing it from a place of humility. They're doing it for something bigger,
Mm.
than themselves. And so I really connected to that and the journey I shared with Jaisel and, us doing a lot of give back and what we do at Outsource Access kind of connected with. But that's, disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action. So he has, 20-mile march in there, bullets before cannonballs, the hedgehog concept, the flywheel. These are all timeless.
Mm.
They can apply to a family, to a nonprofit, to a business, and I think they apply 300 years from now. So that's been a big mentor. All his books and concepts and digging into that map. Would highly encourage everybody to go to it. And then undergirding all of it is this thing called the return on luck, right? The 10x multiplier. And when he studied all the companies, he said none of the companies had any more good or bad luck. But because they were doing all the fundamentals right, this when people thought action be a built to last. When good or bad luck came, they were able to either take advantage of it or to defend themselves. COVID was a perfect
Yeah, being
example.
resilient. Yeah.
COVID was necessarily good or bad luck, but because we had structured ourselves in a way to have a distributed workforce, to be able to work virtually and from home and so forth, when that came, we were in a place that we could actually kind of take advantage of it. So Jim Collins, huge fan, and encourage anybody that hasn't engaged it, re-engage it. If you don't read any of his books, just go to that map, watch it. There's a video of him kind of teaching and walking you through it. And another big one for me, and you really kind of further accelerated when we connected was John Maxwell on leadership. And I'd, read some of his stuff and partially engaged, but when we, connected, I just dove back in. And so, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership became a staple. And so I found a summary version of it. So actually I write a welcome message to every single frontline virtual assistant that comes into our business. And a lot of people say, why as a CEO are you doing that at frontline employees, right? It's probably the best 8 to 10 hours I spend per month. Some months can get a little heavier or lighter depending, but I write a personal message, welcoming them to the company, asking about their families. Like somebody that grew up in the Philippines getting this from a CEO, they've never seen this before in their lives,
Mm.
right? But the two things I send them is like, hey, part of this journey, I want you to watch this map video by Jim Collins. And I send them that summary, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership of Maxwell. And I ask them to tell me, which one do you most identify with? So there's so many that I've had through the years in podcasts, but those two really ring out. And thanks again to you to kind of reignite the Maxwell thing for me. It kicked off something solid there.
Absolutely. You're also a part of organizations. I know you've mentioned one or two, but talk to me about the entrepreneur organizations you're a part of and why,
Yeah,
because I know it's a big deal, and a lot of people don't know or know how or where to do something like that, and if it's beneficial. So, what's been your
sure.
experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I talk to young entrepreneurs, that's one of the first thing I say is whether it's an organization or if it's just a collection of friends of yours that are entrepreneurs, like get yourself a consistent group to connect and meet with because entrepreneurship is a unique path and not everybody takes. And a lot of us sometimes our friends aren't ones that are in that path and they can't
Right.
quite understand or relate to kind of what your world is. So regardless if you choose an organization or an informal collection of group, highly encourage people to do so. And I didn't do that in my 20s. I had a business partners and that was it. We were a vacuum. It was me and my business partner, and everything kind of existed in our opinions, our perspectives, and we didn't really have a lot of external perspective, right? But it wasn't until my early 30s, about when I met my wife. And all great things happened when I met my wife.
Hmm.
And one of those was learn about Entrepreneurs Organization (EO). Global organization, been around 30 years, 200 chapters globally. 18, 20,000 members. And yeah, it's been a huge influence on me. So I joined. I'm now 12 years, in. Um, and basically, it's a group. In that organization, you got to be doing a minimum of $1 million in revenue to join. So it's businesses that have a certain amount of size to them, which is where we were way back in the beginning. Um, when I had my other companies, actually, when I joined. But it's a group of entrepreneurs you meet with every single month for 4 hours. You're in different industries, so you're able to offer different perspectives. And then the chapter has about 20 or 30 events. So the EO Atlanta chapter is what I joined. So we have chapter events with speakers and content, but you're meeting with that mastermind group every month. Um, And then they have regional and kind of global events. And I got so passionate about it, I actually joined in leadership. So I became president of the chapter during COVID. There's a special place in heaven for all of us that were presidents of any organization during
At that
during
moment.
COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I prior to that I had some other leadership roles in the chapter, and then I got asked to serve on the regional council for the entire U.S. East Coast, which represents about 22 chapters, a couple thousand members. But yeah, that organization, I mean, I can draw a trillion things back that originated in EO, the people I met, things that I learned. It just gives you a group of like-minded individuals that you can learn, engage with, and you're not in this constant like echo chamber of yourself or a business partner. Um, so it's been a huge influence, and it's sparking a whole nother organization company I launched, this one-on-one thing, which I think we'll talk about. Um, and then I joined YPO recently, actually this past year. So YPO is called Young Presidents Organization. It's for slightly larger organizations. Still have a ton of value in EO, and I'm still part of my forum and participate. And because of EO, I got a chance to do EO with Harvard Business School. So I got to go with 60 EOers from 20 different countries for 4 days at Harvard Business School and learn about entrepreneurial strategy. I got to do the Entrepreneurial Master's Program that was at the MIT Endicott House up in Boston for 3 years, again with about 60, 70 entrepreneurs from 20 different countries with some of the top speakers in the world. I got a chance to do the Global Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C. with 35 entrepreneurs from 15 different countries all over the world, growing on how you show up as a leader in your business and in your family and community. Just a massive amount of education and perspective from all kinds of walks of life that I would never trade. And when I decided to launch in the Philippines, EO, I reached out to the EO chapter of the Philippines, said, hey, I'm about to launch a business over there. Could you guys help me? So there's a whole chapter in EO.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they immediately connected me with someone that gave me a tour of how to launch in the Philippines. My EOS implementer helped us during COVID. Was my mentor, was a member of that organization. I was struggling to get a bank. I posted out there, and within 2 minutes, I was on the phone with the VP of one of the main banks in the Philippines. So the network and the relationships, and then and YPO is very similar. It's just some slightly bigger organizations I joined this past year, and also have a forum I meet with monthly, and they have global events as well. So I can't say enough about constantly getting yourself outside of your business. And when I go sit for 4 hours, right, you're shutting phones off, you're focusing. It's that time that you have to really focus on yourself and working on the business versus helter skelter,
With
putting out
like-minded.
fires.
No, that's powerful. One-on-one connections, you mentioned it. Tell me
Yeah.
about this, because this is new. You've been testing it. You've
Yeah.
been putting it through and made a ton of progress with it. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So, as entrepreneurs, we're just trying to solve problems all the time, and kind of what we do. And so when I was president of the Entrepreneurs Organization for Atlanta during COVID, as I mentioned, right? And so normally you're meeting with your forum on a monthly basis. We have 20 or 30 chapter events that you're getting together and connecting with your peers. Well, we couldn't do that during COVID. And so I was like, man, what's a way that we can keep our members connected in an intentional way? I mean, I know everybody was doing Zooms and, doing chat and Slack and WhatsApp, but like, what's an intentional way more specifically? And so a buddy of mine who's a member named Jason Rhodes, brilliant software, developer, I said, hey man, could you write some software that could pair our members together, exclude members that are in forum together because I already know them well, but write pairings. And I grabbed a couple of my staff from the Philippines and said that they can actually go in, run these pairings using the software, and then do email intros of our members. And so once a month, you say, hey, Jamie and Brad, both of you are EO Atlanta members. It would show up in your inbox. Here's both your companies, both your LinkedIn profiles, both your backgrounds. We're going to ask, Jamie to take the lead and, and set up a meeting so you guys can just, connect and stay in touch. I mean, the organization didn't even know we were doing it. I was just doing it like it's a favor, kind of as a little project. And the feedback was phenomenal. I mean, in this organization, 180 members, people were getting connected and having great conversation. And, because Slack and Facebook groups, those all exist, but you've got to go to those to communicate. This just showed up in your inbox.
It kind of does it for you, or it sets the table, is what it feels like as you're describing that.
And then it comes from the organization. So we ended up making it private label to the organization. So you get an email from the EO Atlanta One-on-One Connections program. And then our VAs are managing that inbox for the organization. So there's no burden on the administration of that organization. Because a lot of them have chapter administrators and what have you. And you can make people walk on water. But if you add more to their job description, so this thing is like, hey, all you do is give us your member list. Our team will data scrape and fill in all the gaps, get people's LinkedIn profiles, their bios, go grab it off of the web. And then the software that Jason wrote would kind of do the pairings of it. And it was great. I mean, the feedback we were getting. So inside of 3 months, we made 600 connections among our members, and the stories were just phenomenal. And then we realized it was a way to retain our sponsors, because we had sponsors writing checks, to the organization. You had about a dozen sponsors, accounting firms and so forth. Well, during COVID, they couldn't meet with our members to kind of
Right.
get value. So we said, members, hey, would you be willing to be introduced via email to a sponsor once a quarter? And so it's phenomenal. We were able to then get our members connected to our sponsors. So we're having this one-to-one member connection, then sponsors to members. And the organization said, hey, can we write an article? The global organization, EO, said, can we write an article about this little project you're doing in Atlanta? And I said, sure. So they wrote this article. It went out to all the chapters globally, 200 chapters.
Hmm.
And we started getting outreach. The first one was EO New Zealand. Their chapter administrator had been doing this manually because their chapter liked doing this, but she manually spent 10 hours a month matchmaking members and emailing and connecting them.
Yeah.
She reached out and says, you guys wrote a software or process that can do this? So long story short, we started doing it for them and doing it as kind of an in-kind give back to the organization, initially to kind of just learn and get traction. And then it spread. And so now we're doing it for 30, 35 EO chapters globally across Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Europe, the US. And then other organizations started reaching out. So we're doing a National Fatherhood Association called Front Row Dads. Highly recommend, amazing podcast. It's about entrepreneurship and fatherhood. A National Women's Jewish organization, entrepreneurship organization. We're doing it for a big podcasting conference. So that's the third element is member to member, member to sponsor. But then when people are holding conferences, if you and I, we've gone to a conference, you've never been there before, you show up and there's like a mobile app, you're supposed to be able to connect with people, but you still hit the ground and you don't know anybody.
Right.
So we started running it for conferences. So when people sign up for a conference, before they get there, they get one-on-one email intros to have a Zoom call ahead of time.
Pre-conference.
Pre-conference.
Okay.
So I went to the EOS conference where all the businesses running EOS in their business in Orlando a couple of years ago. First time I went there, never been there before, right? And I land and all of a sudden I'm having they have meet and greets and so forth. Well, if beforehand, once a month, I had gotten email intros to have calls ahead of time.
So
yeah, we'll go
are
through
you
the
kidding?
conference.
Yeah.
So the time I hit the ground, I got 12 new friends. We've already pre-made some meetings and then they met people, they introduced me to people. So it creates much more momentum and engagement kind of at the
Awesome.
conference. So the tagline is it's the only private label member to member only private label one-on-one connection program for member-based organizations and conferences. And so we've been basically running as a side project for a number of years, and we're about to launch it aggressively. I mean, there's thousands of member-based organizations, chambers of commerce, and so forth that are just struggling to retain members. The values the members themselves.
That's huge. Yeah,
just get them connected.
Does it for them, and it's kind of a turnkey, is what it sounds like, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's private label for the organization, and so they don't have to do the work. And it's another value. We even have some chambers of commerce we talked to even charge for it as an additional service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually could be a revenue generator for people that want to participate in the program.
Love that. So what's next for OA? Outsource Access, the future, where do you see it head in the next couple years?
Well, I tell you, we got all AI coming at us hot and heavy, which is, everybody always asks, are you worried about that displacing what we do? I tell you, not even close. AI is amazing and ChatGPT is amazing and so forth, but it still requires understanding it, embracing it, how to leverage it. But the real power is when we can take our VAs and teach them how to use these AI tools and they come together into a business, it's like rocket fuel. So I mentioned we just brought in an unbelievable new director of training. So we've been training all of our staff on AI, ChatGPT, how to leverage it, how to bring it to our clients and say, here's how we can use this in your business, whether it's, creating content, whether it's researching competitors. I mean, one of our clients the other day was looking to launch in a new market and they didn't know who the competitors were. So our VA is like, let me go ask ChatGPT. So went in, prompted it. You're an expert in, medical manufacturing in Canada. What do the competitive, landscape look like? And so this client, we gave them a whole output, right? So that's some low hanging fruit on it. But I think leveraging AI and training our staff on AI on how to bring those two together, because, industries of the future in my space are ones that embrace that, and know how to bring those two together. So that's a near-term thing that we're focusing on big for the future. And overall, it's just growth. I mean, like I said, we're in 75 different industries right now, 500 plus staff. We're looking to scale, aggressively, choose a couple industries we're going to deep in. And I'd say one of the big spaces we're going into is franchising. Franchises are just businesses, just like any other business, except when you learn one's model, there's several hundred more right behind it. So we've got some key verticals we're going down, but that's one I've gone to several franchising conferences recently, partner with the franchisors, say, hey, we're willing to commit a whole team in the Philippines who knows your playbook, your process, your software, your system. So when you sell a franchise, we can have pre-trained people that can plug in and get that franchise out of the gates, generating revenue and performing. So it's a win-win. The franchisor doesn't make their money until they make their override. And the franchisee obviously wants to get to profitability as soon as possible. So we got some brands that we're working with right now, and looking to expand that rapidly. But overall, it's just continuing to be a growth partner and have a big impact and like bringing these worlds together. It's not and or it's not about shipping jobs overseas and replacing. It's how do we integrate our staff with U.S. companies or the other international countries we work with to help them grow and scale together. So that's the path ahead, and we just kind of focus a year at a time with kind of our growth plan and in our directions.
Well, and I have no doubt with the team you've got now, the new team, the new leadership team you built, and the vision and your track record, man, you're going to make it, and you're going to continue adding value. And I can't wait to see these develop and grow. And I'd love to have you back on this specific segment to talk about behind the curtain, because you've given us a great picture of that. And congratulate you on that. It's been great getting to know you as a person too. So congrats, and let's do this again.
Same here, man. Thanks so much. It's been amazing getting to meet you a number of years ago, and you and I've intersected back again, and it's cool seeing both of our paths. You just never know what led to this whole operation of where you are now. It's just one relationship away from a next turn in the road that can take you to a new fun destination. So it's a cool new chapter, and so excited to see your path as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.